The Office of the Solicitor General, OSG, has asked the Supreme Court to junk the petition filed by martial law human rights victims seeking to prevent President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. from assuming his post should be dismissed for being moot. The petition filed by several groups of martial law victims, according to Solicitor General Jose CALIDA, has become moot since Marcos Jr. has already been proclaimed by the Joint Congress, sitting as the National Board of Canvassers, NBOC, as the winner of the May 9 presidential race and the incoming chief executive. CALIDA added that the petition is doomed from the start since it is based on incredulous and misleading narrative that Marcos Jr. was not qualified to run for president. Marcos Jr. is the son of the late strongman former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., who was ousted in 1986 through the so-called EDSA People Power Revolt. The OSG filed its comment before the SC as counsel for the Commission on Elections, COMELEC, which is one of the respondents in the petition. CALIDA said any objections as to the president's qualifications should be filed before the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, PET. Congress had already steered the course of the next 6 years when it upheld the people's will and declared private respondent as the president-elect. The electoral mandate from the sovereign Filipino people is the ultimate political expression that cannot be assailed at all. It now behooves the Honorable Court to take the helm and steady the rudder onto the path of unity, CALIDA said. It can be recalled that the petitioners went to the SC after their pleas seeking to disqualify Marcos from running in the elections were dismissed by the COMELEC 2nd Division, and their motion for reconsideration was also turned down by the COMELEC N-Bank. The Buenaf et al. Petition seeks to set aside the January 17, 2022 and May 10, 2022 resolutions of the COMELEC, which dismissed for lack of merit the petition they filed against Marcos Jr. for the denial or cancellation of his certificate of candidacy for the position of president, and denying his motion for partial reconsideration, respectively. The petition was anchored on Marcos Jr.'s alleged failure to file income tax returns from 1982 to 1985 while he was a public official in Ilocos Norte. The petitioners argued that the COMELEC committed grave abuse of discretion when it gave weight to Marcos's material representation that he is eligible for the position of president and that he has not been convicted of a crime punishable with the penalty of perpetual disqualification from public office. But the OSG insisted that the instances cited by the petitioners do not constitute false material representation because Marcos Jr. was never convicted of an offense that imposed the penalty of perpetual disqualification to hold public office. Also last June 2, the OSG filed before the High Court, in behalf of the House of Representatives, an opposition ad cautelam stating that the SC lacks jurisdiction over the House of Representatives and the Senate that acted jointly as the NBOC, performing its function to proclaim the winning president and vice president. Under the Constitution, Congress has the mandatory duty to canvass and proclaim the winners of the presidential and vice presidential elections without delay and restraint.